to the bank. Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to this Louie T Network exclusive, continuing to cover what the Bears are doing this offseason. And I think the final domino has dropped with this Bears situation now. There's plenty of time between now and the draft, and you'll hear a lot of different things coming out of Chicago as to what they're going to do. You know the mantra, you know the motto, believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man Louie T. So just prepare yourself for the back and forth that is going to come with that situation until there is resolution, whether they actually trade Justin Fields prior to the draft or they trade the number 1 overall pick prior to the draft, whatever the case may be. The likelihood is that the Bears hold on to the number 1 overall pick. And things got a lot more interesting yesterday when the Bears hired an offensive coordinator. Now, I told you last week that the Bears hiring an offensive coordinator would go a long way in determining ultimately what their decision would be. I can't think of a situation that has been played more perfectly than how the Bears have played this number 1 overall pick situation in Justin Fields. The level of ambiguity that they have shown throughout this process has been absolutely stunning. If this were poker, they would have the ultimate poker face. I can't tell if they're going with Justin Fields next year and trading the number 1 overall pick or making a selection at 1, which would be Caleb Williams, and trading Justin Fields. They've done it so beautifully, and they've toed the line right in the middle so well. Even going down as far as to interview candidates that would lead you to believe that they're going in opposite directions, not hiring either one, but kind of straddling the fence, so to speak, going right down the middle. And that's what hiring Shane Waldron kind of represents. Now, follow me here. It's not complicated, but it's a lot. So I'm going to try to explain this to you to make it make as much sense as possible, and then I'll allow you to decide what you think is going to ultimately happen. But here's how we connect the dots to this hiring of Shane Waldron in Chicago as their new offensive coordinator. As we know, Shane Waldron just came from Seattle as their offensive coordinator, has been there for a couple of years now, did a pretty good job in Seattle considering the circumstances. Remember, this is Geno Smith we're talking about here, and Geno Smith put up career numbers, went to the playoffs last season, and this year they just barely missed the postseason, and Geno Smith was really good again, and when he didn't play, Drew Lock was really solid. So Shane Waldron came in, did a really good job. His first year was with Russell Wilson, and his last year in Seattle, things obviously didn't go great there, but we saw continued growth and maturation from Shane Waldron as a play caller. So where does he come from? He really comes from the Sean McVay tree, the Shane Waldron. He really cut his teeth in the NFL under Sean McVay in Los Angeles. Got in there, I think he started out as a quality control assistant, if I'm not mistaken. Worked his way up the food chain, became the passing game coordinator, and then the quarterbacks coach in L.A. So he's very familiar with that scheme. A lot of what he runs comes from that Shanahan and McVay type of scheme, which, coincidentally enough, Luke Getsy, the former Bears offensive coordinator who was under Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, got a lot of his principles from Matt LaFleur, who got a lot of his principles from Sean McVay, who got all of his principles from Kyle and Mike Shanahan. So it's essentially the same offense the Bears were running last season. There may be a slight tweak here or there, but the verbiage is pretty much the same. And Waldron is just a better play caller than Luke Getsy is. And so I think there's a little bit more experience there. And there's a guy that we've seen his body of work be a lot better than the guy they're moving on from. However, if you were going with a coordinator that would give Justin Fields a chance to be successful because he wouldn't have to learn a brand new offense all over again, Shane Waldron is the perfect guy because he literally runs the same type of offense that Luke Getsy runs because they came from the same coaching tree. So it's essentially the same offense. So he wouldn't have to relearn anything new. The verbiage wouldn't be that much different. And so it wouldn't be another offense in the young career of Justin Fields if you were going to move forward with him, right? So from that standpoint, you go, oh, maybe this is a good omen for Justin Fields sticking around in Chicago. But then you start to connect dots and you want to see how this relates to maybe the number one overall pick, Caleb Williams, potentially, and how this would fit him in Chicago. And you need not look any further than his work with QB Collective. So every year, a group of NFL head coaches get together and help train some of the best young talent coming up in the game as they prepare for the NFL draft. It's called QB Collective. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Kevin Stefanski, Shane Waldron, right? Mike McDaniel, all of these guys are, coming together as the name of this group, QB Collective, right? They're coming together to help quarterbacks prepare for the NFL draft, give them the tidbits that they need in terms of technique, fundamentals, things that they should be looking for, how they can be the best version of themselves. And when you work with these players, you establish relationships with them, right? Well, Shane Waldron works with QB Collective. So does Caleb Williams. Okay, that's who he's working with right now. That's who he's been working with. So he has a working relationship, you would think, with Shane Waldron. And so that could be the end there, right? That could be the dots being connected. Justin Fields has also worked with QB Collective when he was coming into the draft back in 2021. So this is very intriguing stuff. But again, you could see how this could benefit Caleb Williams. There's a relationship there already. Those two could be very fond of one another already. And so he could already see the strengths and the weaknesses of Caleb Williams because he's worked with him, for multiple years now on a daily basis for an extended period of time. So he's gotten to see what this kid is capable of and how he could best utilize his skill set in the NFL. Or you could flip it on its head and say, hey, we're rolling with Justin, and here's a guy that has a similar offense to what we've been running already, but he's just a much more advanced play caller, and we expect him to be able to put together a better offensive game plan week in and week out to give Justin the best chance to succeed. And so we're going to roll with Justin, with a guy that's going to bring in an offense that doesn't force Justin to have to, learn an entire new system again. So you see how they're playing this thing right down the middle. I mean, touche, Ryan Poles. You, sir, are putting on a masterclass of not showing your hand. And this is really the last domino to drop. There's nothing else short of an actual trade that could take place between now and the draft. All they're really doing, and I think they already have an idea of what they're going to do. I think all of this has been window dressing to throw everybody off the trail, because they don't have leverage if reports come out that they're leaning one way or the other. They lose their leverage, right? So what you want to do is you want to keep all options open. You want people to believe, I don't mind keeping Justin Fields. I'll keep Justin Fields. I'll trade the number one pick. What are you going to give me? I've got suitors. What are you willing to part ways with? Then you want people to feel like, I'm going to take this pick at 1. What are you going to do to stop me from taking the pick at 1? You want it bad enough? Come and get it. What are you willing to part ways with? So it goes both ways. You want Justin Fields? How bad do you want him? Because when this process first started, when we first got to the very bitter end of the Bears season, the best I thought they could get for Justin Fields was a 2. No one's giving you a 1. As they've played this thing straight down the middle with no tells, even going as far as to interview coordinators that would suggests that they're going in the opposite direction. As I mentioned already, Greg Roman seems like a Justin Fields type of fit, and Cliff Kingsbury seemed like a Caleb Williams type of fit. Even going as far as to do those interviews just to, again, play it down the middle. Even hiring Shane Waldron down the middle. There's no tell one way or the other. So they've got the upper hand right now, do the Bears. Everybody's kind of waiting in limbo, and that's how it's going to be until we approach April and get closer to the draft. I think we will have a much better, understanding of what it is they're going to do once we get closer to the draft. But I think they already know. I think all they're looking for at this point is confirmation that Caleb Williams is the guy. The tape has spoken already. They've done their due diligence. They've got people, boots on the ground, area scouts who have been following this man around probably since he hit the Oklahoma campus, followed him to USC, and they've been giving the Bears updates. They know exactly what this kid is about. But it's one thing to hear it from someone else's mouth. It's another thing to sit down with this kid for the first time at the combine and have a chance to talk to him and get a feel for him. It's another thing to have him, go to his pro day, talk to him again, see him throw in person, right? Feel even better about him and his skill set. And then feel even better about the person, Caleb Williams. And then finally have him in for one of your 30 visits if that's what you decide to do, which I don't know why you wouldn't if this is going to be a decision that you potentially make. It's a huge one. You want to get as much time with this kid pre-draft process as you can. I'm assuming once they check off all the boxes and they're comfortable with who he is as a person, as a leader, and all of that good stuff, because again, size, if that matters to them, his height, hand size, all that stuff, if that stuff is something that they need confirmation on, they'll get all of those things. They'll get all the measurables. They'll get all the medical. They'll get all the mental evaluations and things of that nature. They'll get all that data. And if that stuff matters to them, they'll parse through that, meet him. And I think that's the most important thing is meeting him, sitting down with him, talking to him, and getting a feel for him. And if everything checks out, I think they're going to make the pick at number 1, right? But even if that doesn't take place, I think they've done this so well that they've put themselves in a position where they could get a number 1, like a first-round pick for Justin Fields. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Bill Belichick becomes the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons and the Falcons then trade the 8th overall pick for Justin Fields. I wouldn't be shocked if that took place. That might shock some of you. It wouldn't shock me, especially after Justin Fields went into Foxborough last year on a Monday night and dug in Bill Belichick's ass. Pause. Crushed him on a Monday night. Ran all over him, threw all over him, and I don't think Belichick has ever forgotten that. And looking at that team, I think the best fit in the league for Justin Fields is in Atlanta with Pitts, with Bijan Robinson, and Drake London. With that trio of talent at those 3 positions, bringing in an athlete like Fields, I think sky's the limit. We already know he is a guy that loves throwing it to the tight end. You've got one of the most athletically gifted tight ends in football. Bijan Robinson and him in the same backfield is as dangerous as it gets. And then you add in a guy like Drake London who has a massive catch radius. That's better for Fields. Gives him a much bigger target to throw the football to. And like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if Belichick took the Falcons job and the first order of business is to go and get Justin Fields if he's made available. And that would give the Bears 3 picks in the first round. Unbelievable. And what they would all be in the top 10, presumably. I don't remember where the Bears' actual pick in the first round is. With how they played down the stretch, they may have played themselves out of the top 10, and they may be like at 11, but that would be insane. At that point, you'd have to trade one of them and push that capital back to next year, right? There's no way you make 3 first-round selections. I mean, you could. Theoretically, somebody would have to take one off your hands, and maybe no one's interested in doing that, but we'll see. So many things can happen. There's so many storylines here yet to be developed. But at the end of the day, this is the final domino that I think matters pre-draft in terms of this situation, trying to draw an inference before they actually make a decision. I think they're leaning towards spending the number 1 overall pick on Caleb Williams. But keep this in mind. I can't get this out of my brain when I think about this. There have been so many players, and I know that this doesn't ultimately sway a GM one way or another. And they've also got a team president who has spoken, who I think, if I interpreted what he said correctly, it sounded like he was more in favor of bringing back Justin Fields. He's like, I know we want to win, and that's important, and but there's something to be said about continuity, and the way he phrased it sounded like, hey, I'm Team Justin. But at the end of the day, it feels like they're ready to move on and start anew. This is the best opportunity that they're going to have. Caleb Williams is one of those prospects that you just can't afford to pass up on if you truly believe in his skill set and his talents. And the fact that those players have rallied around, similar to how, and they haven't been as vocal, right? Not like how Max Crosby was in Vegas in terms of saying, hey, I got to explore all my options if they don't bring back Antonio Pierce, which essentially he threatened them and told them, if you don't bring back the guy that I think is the best coach for this team, I'm going to probably have to ask for a trade. They didn't want the smoke in L.A. or in Vegas, excuse me. And rightfully so. I think it was the right move to bring back Antonio Pierce. The players aren't doing that in Chicago. They don't have that kind of power nor leverage. However, they've made it abundantly clear that they think Justin Fields is the right quarterback for the team and that they think he's the leader that they need. And I think they want to continue to move forward with him as their guy. And if you don't bring him back and you bring in Caleb Williams and the chemistry is off and he doesn't play well, this is a Bears team that's ready to win now. They're not looking to continue to build into the future. The timeline for those players, the timeline for the fans is different than maybe that of the GM. I think when you look at the situation, these fans are ready to win. Those players are ready to win. That's part of the reason why I don't know if drafting a Caleb Williams makes the most sense for them. But I also understand that sometimes in order to take those steps forward that you're looking to take, you got to take a step back first. And again, are you in the position to pass up on a guy like Caleb Williams? That's the question the Bears have to ask themselves. I don't see them passing up on him. I just don't. So we'll see what happens. This hire is right down the middle, but I think it's another sign that they're probably leaning towards Caleb Williams. But again, there are ties to Justin Fields here too. So again, the ambiguity of this situation has been absolutely one of a kind. I love how the Bears are handling this. Ryan Poles, again, deserves tons of credit for not tipping his hand at all whatsoever. We'll see what happens. I'll be following this thing as closely as one can follow from the outside looking in. But I think when it's all said and done, all of this is smoke and mirrors as we get this time of the year. And they're going to draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall. And I think what they're effectively doing right now is they're pushing up the value of Justin Fields. Because if they seem desperate, if they seem like they're doing everything, like when the Colts pretty much declared Carson Wentz dead man walking in Indy, they tanked any value that he had, right? And luckily enough for them, Washington was stupid enough to give them 2 third-round picks for Carson Wentz, or else, or was it a 3 and a 2? Luckily, they were dumb enough to get, Washington to fork up what they did for him because they were so desperate, or else they wouldn't have gotten anything for him because they tanked his value by essentially telling everybody, we're not bringing him back under any circumstances. Well, the Bears are making sure that there's no such thing going on with them. You don't know if they're keeping Fields or if they're trading him. And if they do decide to trade him, it's going to put them in a position where they may be able to coop a first round pick for Justin Fields. Which, when this thing first started, when we first started having conversations, I did not think that would be on the table. But with how they're handling this, I think they could get a first round pick for him. What says you? Leave it down in the comment section. Shane Waldron has been hired as the Bears' new offensive coordinator. Feels like another step in the direction of going with Caleb Williams. Again, that QB collective group that's been working with Williams. Shane Waldron is a part of that, so it makes a ton of sense from that standpoint. But it also makes sense for Justin Fields. Luke Getsy was his coordinator the last 2 years. He came from Matt LaFleur's system. Matt LaFleur came from Sean McVay. Sean McVay also fostered a relationship with Shane Waldron, and Waldron literally studied under Sean McVay and learned that offense and made it his own. So by virtue of that, him and Luke Getsy kind of share similar offensive philosophical beliefs. The offenses aren't virtually the same, but a lot of the principles, a lot of the jargon is the same. And Fields wouldn't have to go through another offensive transformation in terms of learning another playbook. So it feels like a move that could also relate to Justin Fields. I just love what the Bears are doing here. You have no idea. Yeah, none right now. Everything they've done has been to keep everybody in the dark, and they've done a beautiful job. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this Louie T Network exclusive. Last domino. Now we wait. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.